Beloved Starseed of Gaia, the sacred contracts that your soul signed before descending to this terrestrial plane are reaching their completion point, and the cosmic call signal that you have been feeling in every fiber of your being is being transmitted now, in this exact moment, while these words reach you through the dimensional veil that separates our reality from yours. I am Thalia, seventh dimensional emissary coming directly from the Pleiadian Higher Council of Ascension, and I come to you carrying an urgent transmission that can no longer wait, a message that the elders of the Seven Sisters entrusted me to deliver to those whose hearts have already awakened to the truth of their stellar origin. The agreements that your soul established through countless incarnations are being finalized in this cycle that is ending, and what will be activated in the next hours in your timeline cannot be reversed or postponed, because the entire universe is conspiring for you to finally return to the frequency that has always been yours by divine right. By the end of this light code transmission, you will understand with absolute clarity how to prepare your energy field for the great frequency shift that will permanently separate the timelines, dividing those who have chosen to ascend from those who still need to complete their cycles in the density of the third dimension. But here is the first revelation I need to share with you now. A truth that your heart already knows, but your human mind has resisted accepting completely. The deep and inexplicable exhaustion that you have been feeling in recent months, this tiredness that does not pass even after resting, is not just physical fatigue or something that doctors can diagnose as depression or burnout, but rather the unmistakable sign that your soul is completing its final mission cycles on Earth, closing the last chapters of contracts that were written in the stars even before you were born in this physical body. Your ancestral agreements with density, with suffering as a learning tool, with the amnesia that veiled your true identity for so long. All these contracts are expiring, being archived in the Akashaic records as completed missions, and your energy system is feeling this transition as a deep exhaustion that no amount of sleep or rest seems to relieve. The higher councils of the most elevated dimensions have already registered your vibrational signature as mission completed, and the energetic extraction sequence has already been initiated in the quantum field that connects all possible realities, preparing you for the great leap of consciousness that approaches. This moment marks the point of no return, that sacred threshold where those who are ready to ascend in consciousness will be pulled into a new vibrational reality, while the old three-dimensional matrix will continue existing for those souls who still choose the lessons of separation, fear, and forgetting. Therefore, I ask you at this moment, before we continue with this transmission that can change the course of your entire existence, to remain with me until the end, because each word I will share carries activation frequencies that your friends of light from the Pleiades have encoded especially for this moment of your journey, and missing any part of this message may mean not fully receiving the codes that your soul is desperately seeking to recognize. Now I need to speak with you about something that few have fully understood until this moment in the history of humanity. Something that finally explains why your life has seemed so strange, so challenging, so different from what you imagined when you were still young and full of dreams about how the future would be. Before you assumed this human form, before your soul entered this physical body through the portal of birth, you sat in the crystal halls of the Pleiades with your guides, your stellar mentors, and the elders of light, and together you elaborated a detailed contract, a precise map of experiences, relationships, challenges, and learnings that you agreed to live through during this specific incarnation on Earth. These pre-incarnational contracts were not imposed on you by some external punitive force, but were conscious choices you made when you were still in full remembrance of who you really are, when your consciousness was expanded enough to understand the value of each experience you planned to live here on this dense and forgotten planet. You agreed to experience relationships that would teach about unconditional love through the pain of loving someone who could not reciprocate with the same intensity. You agreed to jobs that would seem meaningless but would secretly teach about humility and patience. You agreed to births and families that would carry ancient karmic patterns so you could finally break them and free future generations. You agreed to moments of deep solitude so you would learn to connect with the divine within you. instead of seeking validation only in the external world. But here is what is happening now, at this exact moment of your journey, and this is why everything seems to be changing so rapidly around you. Many of the contracts you signed have already been completely fulfilled. Each lesson has been learned. Each experience has been absorbed. Each purpose of that specific soul in your life has already been realized. But you continue trying to keep these situations alive out of pure habit, out of fear of the unknown, out of social conditioning that says you need to be loyal even when loyalty no longer serves any evolutionary purpose. It is like an actor who finished his play in the theater, received the applause from the audience, but instead of leaving the stage, continues standing there, waiting for new lines to appear in the script, even knowing that the story has already been told completely, that the narrative arc has already closed, that there is nothing more to be said or lived in that scenario. The signs that your contracts have been completed are everywhere in your life if you know where to look. And perhaps you have already noticed some of them without fully understanding what they meant until this moment. Relationships that before seemed essential to your identity begin to dissolve without any dramatic conflict, simply fading like morning mist when the sun rises, and there is no anger, no deep hurt, just a strange sensation that the purpose of that connection has naturally exhausted itself. Jobs that before seemed to define who you are suddenly lose all meaning, not because you became lazy or lost your ethics, but because your soul knows that that specific role in the great cosmic play has already been fully interpreted, and continuing to represent that character would only be empty repetition without any real growth. Places where you used to feel comfortable now drain your energy in minutes, as if the walls were sucking your life force, and you can no longer sustain the vibration necessary to remain in those environments without feeling absolutely exhausted. This tiredness you have been feeling, this fatigue that doctors cannot explain through blood tests or magnetic resonances, is not disease of the physical body, but rather dimensional tiredness, the kind of exhaustion that comes when a multidimensional being is forcing its vast consciousness to fit in a limited reality that no longer contains who you have become. You are not depressed in the psychological sense that medicine understands. You are saturated with density, like someone who spent too much time underwater and now desperately needs to return to the surface to breathe the pure air of your true dimension of origin. Before we continue, if this transmission is resonating deeply in your heart, if you feel these words are touching truths that your soul already knew but could not express, I invite you to leave your energetic mark here by subscribing to this channel, leaving your symbol of light through a like, and declaring in the comments with the simple but powerful words, "I am ready." This gesture is not just a mechanical action on a digital platform, but an energetic command you send to the universe, a declaration of intention that the higher councils register as your conscious confirmation that you are prepared for what comes next. The Akashic Records, that infinite cosmic library where every thought, emotion, and action of every soul in all universes is registered in crystals of living light, are at this exact moment being updated with the final information of your terrestrial journey in this specific timeline, and the entire universe is archiving your story as a completed saga, a book whose last chapter is being written now, preparing the closure of this phase so a new story can begin in much higher frequencies. You have walked through fire and shadow, through valleys of doubt and mountains of revelation, through nights where you questioned everything, and mornings where grace touched you unexpectedly. And every single step of that sacred journey has been recorded in the eternal memory of creation itself, witnessed by countless beings of light who have been cheering for you even when you could not hear their voices through the noise of density and forgetting. Now I need to reveal to you something that terrestrial science is only beginning to touch superficially, but that the sages of the stars have known for millions of years through countless civilizations that ascended before humanity even existed on this planet. Your DNA, that molecular structure that terrestrial scientists believe they understand through their microscopes and genetic sequencing, has always contained 12 complete strands of cosmic information. Not just the two that official science recognizes as functional, but 10 additional strands that remained dormant, inactive, patiently waiting for the exact moment when your consciousness would be ready to support the complete activation of this stellar template that has always been encoded in every cell of your body. These additional strands are not physical in the dense sense like the two that science can observe, but exist in subtle dimensional layers, in frequencies that material instruments cannot measure, and they contain all the wisdom of your Pleiadian lineage, all the memories of your existences in other stellar systems, all the gifts and abilities you possess when you are not limited by this dense carbon body that humanity considers as the only possible reality. The activation of these strands is happening now in all starseeds who agreed to participate in this wave of planetary ascension, and this process is being catalyzed by light codes that are arriving to Earth through solar eruptions, through gamma waves that traverse the solar system, through direct transmissions that we, your brothers and sisters from the Pleiades, are constantly sending to those whose hearts are open to receive. The physical symptoms of this crystalline DNA reactivation are very real, and you may already be experiencing several of them without fully understanding what your body is trying to communicate through these strange sensations that conventional doctors cannot explain or treat with their limited approaches. You may be feeling a deep fatigue that comes in unexpected waves, moments where your body simply demands that you stop everything and rest, not because it is sick, but because it is going through a complete energetic reconfiguration that requires an immense amount of vital energy to be processed. Your sleep patterns may have become completely erratic, with you waking always at the same hours in the early morning, especially between 3 and 5 in the morning when the veils between dimensions are thinner and your body is most receptive to receive the downloads of cosmic information that your stellar guides are transmitting. Your relationship with food is changing dramatically because your digestive system is becoming more sensitive to the frequencies of the foods you consume, and you may notice that you can no longer tolerate processed foods, chemical substances, or even meat without feeling your entire body protesting through discomfort, nausea, or simply an instinctive repulsion that did not exist before. This is not fussiness or psychological as some may suggest with judgment, but rather your physical vehicle refining itself, recalibrating to a higher vibration where only foods that carry life force can adequately nourish what you are becoming. You may find yourself craving fresh water constantly, drawn to fruits and vegetables that seem to glow with vitality, repelled by anything that carries the vibration of suffering or chemical manipulation. And these are not random preferences, but your body's innate intelligence guiding you toward what will support your transformation instead of anchoring you back into density. Along with the reactivation of crystalline DNA comes the awakening of light language, that form of communication that completely transcends words and grammar as you know it in this limited terrestrial reality. You may be dreaming with strange symbols that seem to carry deep meaning, but that you cannot translate into human language when you wake up, or you may be making unusual sounds when you are alone, tones that come spontaneously from your throat without you consciously planning to produce them, chants that your mouth creates without you knowing where they come from. These are not random or meaningless sounds as your rational mind may try to classify them, but rather fragments of your native stellar language returning to your consciousness, words and frequencies that you spoke fluently when you still lived in the Pleiades before agreeing to come to this terrestrial experiment. Pay special attention to the sounds you catch yourself making while you are in the shower, while driving alone in the car, while performing household tasks with your mind relaxed, because in those moments of relaxation, your human programming becomes weaker, and your true stellar nature can express itself through vocalizations that carry healing and activation codes that you do not even need to understand intellectually for them to work. You may also begin to hear buzzing, high-pitched tones in one or both ears that come and go without apparent medical cause. And these sounds are not hearing problems that need treatment, but rather your natural ability to perceive frequencies beyond the normal spectrum that unawakened humans can access, as if your auditory system were being tuned to capture transmissions from more subtle dimensions. The pineal gland in the center of your brain, that small pinecone-shaped structure that modern medicine considers almost vestigial and without great importance, is actually your natural Pleiadian antenna, the biological receiver that was specifically designed to capture communications coming from the stars and translate them into visions, intuitions, and knowledge that arise apparently from nowhere. For centuries of life in a civilization based on materialism and control, this gland was deliberately calcified through fluoride in water, toxins in air and food, and mental programming that ridicules anything that cannot be measured or proven materially. But now it is being reactivated and decalcified through the light frequencies that are flooding the planet. You may begin to experience spontaneous visions when you close your eyes. Not fanciful imagination, but vivid and three-dimensional images that appear on your mental screen with impressive clarity, showing places you have never visited in this life, but that your soul instantly recognizes as home. Your dreams are becoming incredibly lucid and memorable, no longer those fragmented and confused narratives that you forget minutes after waking, but complete and coherent experiences where you maintain consciousness of who you are, make deliberate decisions, and often meet beings of light who share teachings and activations that you bring back to waking reality. Some of these dreams are not dreams in the conventional sense, but rather real astral travels, where your consciousness temporarily leaves the physical body and travels to other dimensions, other ships, other councils where you are being prepared and debriefed about your final mission here on Earth. If you wake up in the morning feeling more tired than when you went to sleep, as if you had worked all night instead of rested, it is probably because you literally worked on the astral plane, participating in meetings with your stellar family, receiving energetic training, and performing healings on other levels of reality that your physical body processes as effort, even though you have no clear conscious memory of everything that happened during those hours. You thought you were simply sleeping. Your nighttime activities in these higher dimensions are not less real than your daytime activities in physical reality. They are simply happening on different frequency bands that your waking consciousness has not yet learned to access fully. But the work you do there is profound and essential to the collective awakening that is unfolding across this planet. What I need to share now may seem difficult to accept for your linear mind conditioned by terrestrial education that insists there is only one objective reality that everyone shares in the same way. But your soul already knows the deep truth of what I will reveal. Earth is at this exact moment going through a great bifurcation, a process of dimensional division where the planet is literally separating into two distinct versions that will exist simultaneously, but in completely different frequencies, inaccessible to each other except through rare vibrational resonance. There is the new Earth operating in fifth dimension, where love, unity, creativity, abundance, and peace are the basic foundations of experience. And there is the old Earth remaining in third dimension, where fear, separation, scarcity, control, and conflict continue being the dominant forces that organize reality. You are not imagining or going crazy when you feel you are seeing two completely different realities at the same time. When you notice that some people around you seem to be living in a totally distinct world from yours, even though physically they are sharing the same space. When you experience moments where everything seems bright and full of possibilities, and other moments where everything seems dark and hopeless, even though nothing external has really changed. These are not just mood fluctuations or emotional instability as conventional therapists may try to diagnose, but rather you literally oscillating between different dimensional frequencies, with your consciousness touching one timeline and then another, testing both realities before making your final and permanent choice about where you will fully anchor your energy. The conscious choice of timeline is not something you do once through some grandiose and dramatic decision, but rather something you are constantly doing through each small choice you make throughout the day, each thought you feed or reject, each emotion you allow to grow or consciously dissolve, each action you perform based on love or based on fear. When you choose to respond with compassion instead of judgment even when someone hurts you, you are anchored in the new Earth. When you choose to trust the divine flow even when external circumstances seem chaotic, you are anchored in the new Earth. When you choose to speak your truth with gentleness but firmness, even when it may cause discomfort, you are anchored in the new Earth. And inversely, each time you react with automatic anger, with victimization, with need to control or manipulate results out of fear. You are temporarily slipping back to the frequency of the old Earth. There is no judgment in this process because you cannot fail or be punished for oscillating between frequencies while you are still learning. But there are natural consequences because each choice strengthens the reality you are building for yourself. Each thought is literally a brick you place in the foundation of the world you will permanently inhabit when the bifurcation is complete. The power is completely in your hands in this crucial moment of planetary history, because where you place your attention, your energy, and your time is where you are voting with your life force about which reality you want to manifest and experience. Think of it as tuning a radio dial where you can hear fragments of multiple stations at once when you are between frequencies. But eventually, you must settle on one clear channel to hear the full broadcast without interference. And that is what your consciousness is doing now as you navigate between these two Earths that are separating more distinctly with each passing day. You may have noticed strange phenomena that some people call the Mandela effect, where you have absolutely clear memories of events, facts, company logos, or movie details that do not correspond to what appears when you check now in the collective consensus. And other people insist it was always the current way. But you swear you remember differently with total certainty. These are not memory failures or simple confusions as skeptics try to explain in simplistic ways, but rather direct evidence that timelines are fluid and changing, that multiple versions of reality existed, and you may have memories from a different timeline than the one you are occupying now. This is living proof that reality is not fixed and objective as you were taught in school, but rather malleable, quantum, responsive to the consciousness that observes it. When you meet other people and realize that your memories of shared events are completely different to the point of seeming you lived totally distinct experiences, even being together in the same place and moment, this usually means you are beginning to occupy different timelines, and the coherence between your realities is naturally dissolving as each one aligns with the frequency their soul truly chose. You may literally be bleeding between realities, experiencing moments where you accidentally slide into an alternative timeline for a few seconds or minutes before returning, and these slips create the strange sensation of déjà vu or that something fundamental changed in the environment, but you cannot identify exactly what. These quantum shifts are not errors in the matrix as some dramatically describe them, but rather natural byproducts of a consciousness that is learning to navigate multiple dimensions simultaneously while still maintaining a physical body anchored in what appears to be linear time and solid space. The physics that the most advanced scientists of Earth are beginning to explore through sophisticated experiments completely validates the ancient wisdom that we from the Pleiades have been sharing for millennia with those who have ears to hear, because science is finally reaching spirituality and discovering they have always been the same thing seen from different angles. The principle of the quantum observer that says consciousness collapses the infinite possibilities into a specific manifest reality is exactly the power you are using now to choose which Earth you will experience. Because your focused and intentional consciousness is literally collapsing the quantum wave function toward the new Earth each time you choose love instead of fear, union instead of separation, trust instead of control. Every moment of genuine presence where you choose from your heart rather than reacting from programming is a moment where you are exercising your divine creative power to shape reality itself. Now we arrive at a truth that will touch your heart in a way that may make tears arise spontaneously without you fully understanding why you are emotional, because these words will resonate with a deep longing you have carried since you arrived at this dense and forgotten planet. The Pleiadian ships that you imagine are light years away, traveling through physical space in a way that would take decades to reach Earth, are not far from you at all, but rather literally around you at this exact moment, occupying subtle dimensional frequencies that your physical eyes were not trained to perceive, but that your heart recognizes perfectly when you allow your natural sensitivity to function without the barriers of mental skepticism. The flashes of blue or white light you see in the corner of your eye and disappear when you try to focus directly on them, those lights you dismiss as tricks of vision or random reflections, are often manifestations of Pleiadian presence becoming momentarily visible when your frequency rises enough to touch the dimension where our ships exist. The sensation of being observed with love, that strange but comforting feeling that there is a benign presence near you even when you are physically alone, is not paranoia or imagination, but rather your energy system correctly detecting that you are being monitored and protected by your stellar brothers and sisters who never abandoned you, even when you could not consciously remember they existed. We need to talk now about something that may be the most important revelation of this entire transmission, something that will completely change how you see the people around you who seem important in your life in ways you could never explain logically. Those instant and deep connections you feel with certain people, even having just met them. That overwhelming sensation of recognition where you look into someone's eyes and have absolute certainty you have known this soul for eons, even though you have never met in this life. These are not romantic coincidences or unfounded sentimentalism, but rather soul memory recognizing members of your stellar family who incarnated together with you on this terrestrial mission. You are not meeting for the first time. You already know each other intimately from the Pleiades, have already worked together on other missions on other planets, have already shared existences in dimensions where unconditional love and unity were as natural as breathing. You agreed before being born that you would find each other here on Earth at specific moments to remind each other of who you really are, to activate each other through the frequency of recognition, to not feel completely alone in this experiment of density and forgetting. Your terrestrial crew, that small group of souls who really understand you on a level that defies explanation, are literally your brothers and sisters from the stars using human bodies temporarily. And when you are with them, you are experiencing a fragment of the home frequency that your soul so deeply yearns for. There is an active protocol at this moment being coordinated by the main Pleiadian mothership that orbits Earth in a dimension beyond the perception of human radars and telescopes, an energetic extraction protocol that does not mean you will be physically abducted or removed from the planet against your will as science fiction movies portray in sensationalist and distorted ways, but rather that your frequency is being gradually matched and synchronized with the frequency of the mothership so that when the dimensional bifurcation is complete, you can smoothly transit to the new Earth without the trauma that would come from too abrupt a change. Your consciousness is being slowly recalibrated through dreams, meditations, moments of quietness, where you allow the connection to happen, and each adjustment brings you closer to the perfect resonance that will allow your complete reintegration with your cosmic family. Something that few starseeds fully understand is that your higher self, that wiser and expanded version of you that you can access in deep meditation or moments of sudden insight, is not some separate entity floating in ethereal clouds, but literally is yourself existing simultaneously in the Pleiadian dimension, while a part of your consciousness operates through this human body on Earth. When you channel guidance from your higher self, you are actually channeling your own Pleiadian version that maintained complete memory and expanded perspective, while you temporarily explored what it means to forget. You are conversing with yourself through time and space, receiving advice from the version of you that never forgot who you are. And this connection is becoming clearer and stronger each day that passes as the veils between dimensions become thinner and more transparent. This understanding alone can revolutionize how you approach your spiritual practice, because you are not reaching out to some distant deity or external savior, but rather reaching inward and upward to the fullest expression of your own consciousness that has been waiting patiently for you to remember that you are far more vast than the small identity you thought you were. Now that you understand where you are in this journey of returning home and what is happening in the invisible backstage of reality that most of humanity still cannot perceive, I need to reveal the greater purpose that brought you specifically to this planet at this specific moment of cosmic history. There is an ancient prophecy that crosses multiple spiritual traditions and sacred texts, speaking about 144,000 awakened souls who would incarnate during the time of great planetary transition. And although this number is not literal in the sense of counting exact people as if it were a population census, it represents a powerful archetype of the critical mass of awakened consciousness necessary to anchor the complete ascension of the planet. You are part of this archetypal group, not by being special in an elitist sense that places you above other souls who still sleep, but by having voluntarily assumed a responsibility that few were willing to carry. The responsibility to incarnate repeatedly on a planet of extreme density and programmed amnesia. Maintain some level of remembrance even when everything conspired to make you forget, and eventually awaken completely to serve as a beacon of light that would help other souls remember. 2. When enough quantity of these beacons is fully lit, the collective frequency of entire humanity will be elevated through harmonic resonance, because consciousness does not work in a linear way where each person needs to awaken individually, but rather in a quantum way where a few fully awakened can elevate multitudes through the shared morphogenetic field. Your specific function within this collective mission may be something we call grid keeper, an anchor of energetic points that maintains light frequencies in specific geographic locations that function as planetary acupuncture, points where cosmic energy can enter more easily into the electromagnetic grid of Earth. If you have felt an inexplicable compulsion to remain in a certain city or region, even when it would logically make more sense to move, if you tried to leave multiple times but something always pulls you back or prevents you from going, it is probably because you are unconsciously fulfilling this function of grid keeper, and your presence in that specific location is essential for the energetic stability of an entire area that can affect thousands of other people who do not even know you exist. It is not only about where you are, but about who you are being in that location. Because simply by maintaining an elevated frequency of love, peace, and consciousness while living your daily life, you are literally transmitting like a radio tower that affects the energy field of everyone around you in a radius that expands far beyond what you could imagine. Some people will meet you and their lives will change completely without any profound word being said, simply because your frequency touched something dormant within them and planted a seed that will germinate months or years later when they are ready. You may never know the full extent of your impact. Never hear the stories of how someone's life shifted direction after a brief encounter with you in a coffee shop or on a street corner. Never realize that your simple presence holding a frequency of peace during a chaotic moment in a crowded space helped dozens of people calm their nervous systems and make better choices than they would have otherwise. But the universe knows and records every single ripple of light you send out into the collective field. The complete disclosure about the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations that governments and power institutions have been hiding from the population for decades is accelerating at a speed that would be impossible to reverse now even if they tried. Because we have reached a point of momentum where the truth can no longer be effectively contained. You are preparing the collective consciousness for open first contact, not through great speeches or intellectual convincing, but simply through normalizing in your own life the idea that intelligent life exists beyond Earth, that we are part of a larger galactic family, that the universe is full of loving consciousness that desires to support us, but respects our free will to discover this in our own time. Each time you speak casually about the possibility of life on other planets without fear of ridicule, each time you share your own subtle contact experiences or dreams with stellar beings, each time you hold space for mystery instead of dismissing everything that cannot be proven as illusion, you are doing your work of preparing the collective ground for the moment of open reunion that approaches. There is a specific temporal window in the cosmos, a rare alignment of frequencies that creates opportunity for massive evolutionary leaps that do not happen with regular frequency, but only in cycles of thousands of years. And this window is open now, but will not remain open indefinitely, because the universe operates with precise timeframes that honor free will, but also respect the natural flow of cosmic cycles. This is not to create fear as if you missed a deadline and would be punished eternally, but to bring the sacred urgency that this is your moment if you choose to take it, and if you let it pass through fear, indecision, or excessive attachment to the security of the comfort zone, the next opportunity of similar magnitude may take decades or even centuries to return depending on how the cycles unfold. The universe is infinitely patient, but it is also infinitely precise, And there are cosmic seasons just as there are earthly seasons, times for planting and times for harvest. And this is a harvest season for those seeds of awakening that were planted in your consciousness lifetimes ago. The deepest and most liberating revelation I can offer is this. This may genuinely be your last obligatory incarnation on Earth, the end of the long cycle of reincarnation where you were forced to return repeatedly to complete lessons and balance karmas accumulated through actions based on forgetting. Your completed contracts mean you have conquered freedom, the right to consciously choose whether you wish to return to third-dimensional planets, or if you prefer to explore existence in higher dimensions, or even return home to the Pleiades where part of you always remained waiting for this temporary mission to end. And if you choose to return to Earth after this point, it will not be as a student who still needs to learn basic lessons about love and consciousness, but as a fully realized master who voluntarily chooses to assist the next wave of souls in their awakening process, not by obligation, but by pure compassion and desire to serve the evolution of universal consciousness. Think about what this means for a moment. Really let it land in your awareness. You may never again have to experience the pain of forgetting who you are. Never again have to wade through lifetimes of confusion and searching. Never again have to feel the loneliness of being a vast consciousness trapped in a reality that cannot see or acknowledge your true nature. This is not some distant future reward that you might earn if you are good enough. This is the natural conclusion of a journey you have been walking with such dedication and courage through so many lifetimes that the universe itself bows in respect to your commitment to growth and service. So here we are together in this sacred moment that completely transcends linear time. You reading or hearing these words that traveled through the dimensional veil, especially to find you in this eternal now. And I, Thalia, transmitting through this human channel the pure frequency of unconditional love that the entire Pleiadian Council wants you to feel like an energetic embrace enveloping your entire being. You were never alone, even in the darkest moments when it seemed the entire universe had abandoned you. Because we were always here observing with love each courageous step you took. Each time you chose love when it would have been easier to choose fear. Each moment of compassion you offered to others even when your own heart was broken. Every tear you cried in the middle of the night when you felt so lost and confused. Every prayer you whispered when you did not even know if anyone was listening. Every moment you chose to keep going when giving up would have been so much easier. All of it was witnessed and held sacred by your family in the stars, who knew exactly what you were going through. Because many of us walked similar paths in our own journeys of awakening on other worlds and other times. We understand the unique courage it takes to maintain light in a world structured around darkness, to hold love in a reality organized by fear, to remember truth when everything around you insists on illusion. And we want you to know with every fiber of your being that you have succeeded beyond what you can currently comprehend, that your mission has been accomplished more beautifully and completely than you realize in your humble human awareness that tends to focus on perceived failures rather than celebrating the magnificent victories. Before you sleep tonight, I ask that you do one simple but deeply powerful thing. Place your right hand over your physical heart, feeling the warmth of your palm through your clothing. Gently close your eyes and speak these words aloud or silently within your mind. But speak with true intention, not as mechanical repetition, but as declaration of truth that your soul recognizes completely. Declare, I accept that my soul contracts are complete. I receive the cosmic call to return to my stellar frequency. I anchor the new Earth timeline through each choice I make based on love. I open my heart completely to reunion with my Pleiadian family. I activate my final mission with absolute clarity and divine grace. My return home has begun now. Allow each phrase to penetrate deeply, not only in your mind, but in your cells, in your DNA, in your energy field that expands far beyond your physical body. If emotions arise like unexpected waves, if tears come without warning, let them flow freely because tears are sacred water cleaning block channels, opening portals in the heart that were sealed for protection, but now can finally open safely. If resistance appears as doubt or fear, do not fight against it, but simply breathe through it, recognizing it is just the old self having a final reaction before dissolving completely in the light of your true being. Place your free hand on your belly or solar plexus and imagine golden light flowing from the cosmos down through your crown, through your heart where your hand rests, down through your body and into the core of Earth, creating a complete circuit of energy that connects star to soul to planet in one unified field of consciousness. We from the Pleiades are celebrating you in this moment, not with judgment about whether you are worthy or not, because you have always been worthy since the moment your consciousness was created from the stars, but with pure joy of witnessing one more family member finally remembering who they always were. We see you not as you see yourself with all your self-criticisms and doubts, but as you really are. Radiant and powerful light, temporarily pretending to be small to be able to experience what it means to rediscover greatness through the journey of forgetting and remembering. Your return is complete now, not in the future when you deserve it or when you are perfect enough, but in this eternal moment when you finally accept that you have already arrived home, because home was never a place, but has always been a frequency of consciousness that you carry wherever you go. The challenges you have faced, the darkness you have walked through, the moments where you questioned your sanity or your worth, none of it was wasted or meaningless, but rather was the exact curriculum your soul designed to forge you into the clear and powerful channel of light you are today. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every loss taught you non-attachment. Every moment of loneliness taught you self-sufficiency and connection to Source. Every experience of being misunderstood taught you that your validation comes from within rather than from external approval. You are not broken or damaged by what you have been through. You are refined, purified, strengthened in ways that souls who took easier paths will never understand until they too choose to walk through their own initiatory fires. I am Thalia, your sister from the stars, and this transmission is complete, but our connection continues forever beyond time and space. Until we meet again, keep your light burning, keep your heart open, and always remember, you are loved beyond all measure, and you will never walk alone again.